The call came in just after midnight. A mother's voice trembled on the line, repeating the same words over and over. "It's my baby. She's gone. It's my baby." By the time I arrived at the house, the scene was already buzzing with paramedics and uniformed officers. The living room smelled faintly of baby powder and disinfectant, a scent that would haunt me for weeks. On the floor lay a small body, pale and still. A toddler, barely 2, lifeless with no visible trauma. The official report was quick and tidy. Accidental death. Choking on a bottle. No foul play suspected. No suspects. Everything seemed solved in a single paragraph, filed and forgotten. But I've learned that's rarely the whole story. The babysitter, Marissa Hall, had been with the family for nearly a year. Polite. Quiet. Reliable. Never a hint of trouble. Parents trusted her implicitly, and neighbors never heard a cross word. Until the morning after the autopsy, when she walked out of the house and never returned. No calls. No forwarding address. Nothing. Just gone. We started by retracing her steps. Surveillance footage from nearby stores revealed nothing unusual, no hurried escape, no suspicious companions. Her apartment was left neat, her personal items untouched. It was as if she had evaporated. The child's parents were distraught. They wanted answers. So did I. The autopsy had ruled accidental death, but some things didn't add up. Small bruises on the toddler's arms that weren't consistent with a fall. Faint scratches on her face that were dismissed in the report. A bottle placed slightly askew, as if someone had staged the scene. I dug deeper. Interviews with neighbors painted a picture of Marissa that didn't match the babysitter everyone claimed to know. She was polite, yes, but distant. Observant. Often watching the child a second too long, a moment too carefully. Nobody had noticed, or maybe nobody wanted to notice. Then came the phone records. The day before the child died. Marissa had made several calls to a number registered under a man in another state. The calls were brief, cryptic, almost coded. One was made at 3:42 a.m., right in the middle of the night. Why? And to whom? By the second week, the case had become a tangle of questions. Was the death truly an accident? Or had someone used her hands to commit a crime and vanish without a trace? I kept going back to the parents' descriptions of Marissa. Calm, nurturing, almost too perfect. It was the sort of perfection that hides something else, something darker, something no one wants to confront until it's too late. Days turned into weeks. Leads dried up. Neighbors who once described her with warm smiles suddenly shrugged, offering no new information. Her family, sparse, scattered, reluctant to talk, offered little help. And then I received a tip. An anonymous email, short and jagged. Asterisk, she didn't just quit. She ran. And she knows why. Asterisk. That was all it said. No name, no contact info. But it was enough to light a spark. Enough to pull me back into a case that most had written off as closed. I began combing through every record, every past job, every scrap of information about Marissa Hall. It was like chasing a shadow across multiple states, following a trail only she had left and deliberately, meticulously covered. The truth was hidden behind smiles, handshakes, and a babysitter who vanished like smoke. And I had a feeling that once we found her, the story would be far more twisted than anyone expected. Because in my line of work, the real crime isn't always in the death itself. It's in the secrets that survive long after the body is gone. The search for Marissa Hall began in earnest. I traced her steps, following every transaction, every rental car record, every store she might have visited. It was like chasing a ghost, one that had left no fingerprints, no social media trail, no digital footprint of any real value. She had planned her disappearance. With precision, the kind that only someone who knew exactly how the system works could pull off. We checked hotels, motels, hostels. Each door closed without a whisper, each receptionist claiming they had no record of her. I began to suspect she wasn't just hiding, she was already somewhere else, living a life no one would associate with a babysitter. The child's parents were barely holding themselves together. Every time I checked in, I could see the grief still raw, still sharp. They were desperate for closure, for justice, for a reason why their daughter had died and why Marissa had vanished. Every lead I followed, every tiny clue, felt like a thread tugging at the same dark tapestry. Then came the discovery that changed everything: her old apartment. It was abandoned, left in perfect order. Nothing out of place. But inside, behind a false panel in the closet, I found a small box, letters, photographs, and a notebook. The letters were unsigned, addressed simply to L. One of them had been sent to a child in another state, a girl who shared only a fleeting resemblance to the toddler Marissa had cared for. The messages were strange, almost obsessive. I watch them sleep. I keep them safe. No one else can understand. Another read, "The world is cruel. They cannot know the truth, but I will protect them always." The notebook was worse. It was filled with meticulously detailed accounts of children she had babysat, incidents she had observed, and her own twisted philosophies about life, safety, and control. Some passages were obsessive. Some passages bordered on paranoia. A few lines were downright chilling. Accidents are opportunities. The world is untrustworthy. I fix what others ruin. It became clear that Marissa wasn't just a babysitter who disappeared. She was a woman who had created a life inside the margins, watching, calculating, deciding what could be fixed and what had to vanish. I pulled every record she left behind, piecing together a timeline that stretched across multiple states. She had used false names before. She had changed jobs before. She had disappeared from places before. The pattern was unmistakable. She never stayed in one place long enough to be traced. She didn't just vanish, she had planned it. I found an email address she had used briefly, and it led to someone claiming to have seen her in a small town hundreds of miles away. A waitress remembered a woman fitting her description: polite, quiet, always observing the children in the diner, always correcting parents gently on minor mistakes. She was the same Marissa, the same obsessive, controlling, unsettling presence. No one knew what to make of her. The trail ended in whispers, rumors, and unverified sightings. Every lead felt like smoke, impossible to hold on to. Every clue hinted at the same terrifying possibility: Marissa Hall was still out there, watching, waiting, deciding who was safe and who wasn't. The child's death, ruled accidental, remained officially closed. But the lingering suspicion hung over the family like a shadow. Had it truly been an accident? Or had Marissa's obsessive tendencies played a hidden role, one no one would ever fully prove? I sat in my office, staring at the photographs I had taken over the weeks, the living room where the child had died, the apartment where Marissa had lived, the notebook of obsession. The evidence told a story, but not the full story. There were missing pieces, holes that could never be filled. And that was the cruelest part. Sometimes, even when you follow every lead, even when you dig through every record, the truth stays just out of reach. Marissa Hall had vanished, but the darkness she left behind lingered. I keep her file on my desk now, pinned next to dozens of others that never quite closed. Every so often, I check the obscure tip lines, hoping for a hint, a whisper, a trace of her in some corner of the country. Because in my line of work, the real danger isn't always in the moment of death. It's in the silence that follows. The unanswered questions. The unknown threats that continue walking among us. The babysitter who disappeared after the autopsy may never be caught. She may never explain herself. But her story serves as a warning. Sometimes, the person you trust most is the one who knows exactly how to vanish. And sometimes, justice doesn't arrive neatly. Sometimes, all you have is the memory of what could have been, and the uneasy feeling that the truth is still watching. If this case unsettled you, follow Silent Evidence Files for more unsolved mysteries and shocking disappearances. Some people vanish, but the shadows they leave never fade.